Yogena chittasya padena vacham malam sharirasya cha vaidikena yopakarottam pravaram muninam padanjalim pranjaliranatosmi stuve padanjalim vyasam shankaram cha munitrayam kartra sutrasya bhashisya kramat vivaranasya cha. So now we are resuming the classes after more than maybe nearly about 2 months of summaries. And today Vedanandaji was mentioning incidentally that this is a special day in the history of this institution because this September 23rd was the birthday of Swami Ashokananda, who was the great Swami who built this new temple, Olima retreat, Lake Tahoe, the convent buildings. So perhaps it is a very auspicious day. And that Swami worked here almost 30 years or more. And he was the one who expanded this institution and brought it to this level of, growth and expansion. So just incidentally I mentioned, that's all. Now I want to explain this, the invocation. Though I did explain this invocation in a previous occasion when we started this class, but after 2 months maybe it is appropriate to give a short description of the meaning and significance of this verse. Yogena chittasya padena vacham malam sharirasya cha vaidikena yaha apakarottam pravaram muninam padanjalim pranjaliranatosmi. So this is an invocation. The central theme of this verse is, I bow down to the great sage Patanjali. Patanjali is the author of this Yoga Sutra text. Sutra means a very pithic statement, aphorisms as they're called, which may be in the form of a phrase, a word, or very often may be a full sentence, but there need not be any kind of symmetry between verb, noun, object, and so on. It could be a pithy statement, a phrase, a word, or maybe a few letters also. It could be. As the sutras in grammar, Panini's grammatical system, one sutra is a. This is one sutra. The last sutra of Panini's system. So that's the general idea of what a sutra stands for, a pithy statement. So Patanjali Yoga Sutra text contains 195 aphorisms, small statements. It could be 196 because according to some authors who divide one sutra into two, which deals with one of the school of Buddhist philosophy called Vijnanavada, it could be 196, divided into 4 chapters. Each chapter containing a number of sutras, which explain different aspects of yoga philosophy, yoga psychology, yoga discipline, and also its various practices. As a philosophical system, it is one of the 6 orthodox systems of Indian philosophy. Orthodox in the sense, a system of philosophy which accepts Vedas as the central foundation, the primary foundation. It is called Astika Darsanas, means orthodox or theistic systems of philosophy, which are 6 in number. Of these 6 systems, Sankhya and Yoga are mutually related. Coming to this particular verse, it is in a way a reference to Patanjali. What did Patanjali do for the welfare of humanity? That's what this deals with. So, yogena chittasya padena vacham malam sharirascha vaidyakena. So, what he did, yogena chittasya, he introduced a system of cleaning the mind, making the mind healthy, keeping the mind healthy. Chitta here means mind. So how to keep our mind healthy, keep it fed with good thoughts, good ideas, good impressions. Malam means dirt, filth, something that we dispose of. Let us say what the trash can contains, it is malam. The human body also, in a way, if you don't mind, is a trash can, a beautifully well-developed trash can. From one angle, from another angle, it is the most sublime mechanism that God has created. The same human body can take you across the ocean of worldliness, what we call samsara. It can help you, it becomes an instrument in our hands to reach the highest transcendental spiritual bliss. For also this body becomes a sublime, beautiful, wonderful instrument. But that's from a spiritual point of view, as we make use of it. From a purely physiological point of view, it is a huge, well-built trash can. So that is significant to understand Patanjali's system. So Patanjali says, to remove mental impurities, he wrote these Yoga Sutras. He developed this yoga psychology and yoga philosophy. Vacham malam means the filth and dirt of words, speech, language. To purify language, to enable us to use language properly, what he did, he wrote a very elaborate commentary on Sanskrit grammar. In a way, he expanded and expounded Panini's grammatical system in a very scientific, rational way. So he taught us to use language with purity, in a way what to use, what words to use, what words not to use, and how not to use language. All those rules and regulations he clearly expounded. That is, Vacham Mala means the filth and dirt of language he removed, which means he built up a wonderful, sublime grammatical system. This is Patanjali Mahabhashyam, it is called. It is supposed to be the greatest and most profound work on Sanskrit grammar. And it belongs to the second millennium BC. And Patanjali didn't stop there. Then what he did, he also wrote a commentary on medicine, Ayurveda, Indian school of medicine. So these are the three great contributions he made. So we bow down before this great sage who taught us how to use language and how to keep our mind healthy and pure, and how to get rid of physical diseases. The second verse deals with the contributions of the three great teachers who expounded Patanjali system. The first one, the original author of the sutras, Patanjali himself. Second great sage mentioned is Vyasa, who wrote a bhashya or commentary in Sanskrit on Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. The third one is Shankaracharya, who wrote a commentary on the commentary of Vyasa on Patanjali Yoga Sutras. So it can be a super commentary. It's called Vyasa Bhashya Vivarana, it is called. Means explanation, description, or a descriptive interpretation or commentary of Vyasa's commentary on Patanjali Sutras. So it's called Munitrayam. Muni is a sage who have learned the art of communicating through language and also through silence. That's called the Mananat Muni. So a Muni is a person who communicates, who teaches the world through language and also through silence. So called Munitrayam. Stuve Patanjalim Vyasam Shankaram cha Munitrayam Kartru Sutrasya Bhashisya Krama Vivaranasya. We bow down before these great sages, great authors, who wrote the Sutras, that is in Patanjali, Bhashya or commentary Vyasa, and commentary upon the commentary of Vyasa, Shankaracharya. It's called Munitrayam. This is the triple teachers, the great Holy Trinity in the hermeneutics of Patanjali's system. So now we will come to the particular sutra that we we were about to start, but we didn't really start. That is in the Vibhuti Pada, 11th sutra. So, as I mentioned earlier on several occasions, Patanjali's sutras are divided into 4 chapters. It's called Pada or chapters, let us say. The first Pada or the chapter in the printed book is Samadhi Pada, which deals with the highest degree of concentration or Samadhi. The second Pada, as you find in the printed book, will be dealing with the Sadhana Pada, the means, the practices, the methods of different practices. The third chapter, Vibhuti Pada, deals with the results, the powers that you naturally develop as a result of practicing these mental disciplines. As you practice yoga, on the one hand, our mind becomes calm and quiet, and also it becomes sharp. It becomes a very effective weapon for studying, learning, concentrating, working, and also going beyond itself. That's the subject of how to go beyond mind. You have to study mind to go beyond mind. That's Nirodha, literally means going beyond, transcending, which is one of the central themes of the 3 sutras that we are going to discuss today. 3 sutras dealing with 3 kinds of mental transformations. Now, in this class, of course, during the last several months, I was trying to deal with Patanjali Yoga Sutra system, not according to the order in which it is printed, but I mentioned this many times, but according to the chronological order of how it helps a spiritual seeker. So first we'll deal with definitions and introductions in the Sadhana Pada, which are of course contained in the Samadhi Pada also. So first we dealt with some 14-15 sutras of Samadhi Pada. Then we started from beginning, that is Sadhana Pada, that is the practices, the means, then the results or consequences, Vibhuti Pada, then concentration, Samadhi Pada, and fourth, liberation, Kaivalya Pada, which is the supreme goal of yoga practice. Now, today's, as I mentioned, today's class deals with the subject of mental transformations. As we practice yoga, how our mind takes different forms, how it transforms itself. As an introduction, let us see, what are the 3 states of human mind? The 3 states of human mind in their function, from the functional point of view, are the state of multiple perceptions, then concentration or pointedness, one-pointedness, and transcending both. I shall try to explain, we will understand. On an earlier occasion, also, we'll dealt with different states of mind based on the vrittis and vasanas and samskaras which operate in our mind. So at that time we dealt with different states. Here, the description of mind And the 3 stages of mental transformations are done from a different angle. So on earlier occasions, for example, we discussed the 5 states of mind. 1, a mind which is naturally restless. That is the normal state of human mind. Cannot do anything. I would say it is not a normal situation, but it's a state that frequently human beings can degenerate into. Not being able to concentrate upon anything, which is not a normal situation, but it is really a kind of pathological, abnormal situation. Bipolar problems, some kind of delusions, phobias, all these belong to this category, which is a possibility, which is not normal, but it is a possibility for human beings to degenerate into this state. It is called kshiptam, dullness. But dullness, not total inaction. Mind is always in a state of agitation, but it is in a state of dullness. It is not able to act, but internally there is a lot of conflict. Then mudha state is there, where there is no agitation because the mind is already in a state of total inaction. These 2 states are not normal. But as you find in Patanjali's system, when you read with commentaries, Vyasa, then Vijnana Bhikshu, it's called Yoga Vartikam, it is called. Like that, there are many great thinkers and orators and great speakers and exponents of yoga system. Some of them are Buddhists. Vijnana Bhikshu, Vajaspati Mishra, Vyasa, Shankaracharya, and also in 20th century there was a great sage who lived in Bihar, Harihara Vidyaranya. He wrote not in English, but he wrote in Bengali language, which is his mother language. He lived in a cave somewhere in Bihar, and he wrote a very elaborate commentary, of course based on Vyasas and the earlier commentators, which is well known. The translations are available in English in our bookstore. It's called Harihara. So these are some of the books. And in modern times, to begin with, these Yoga Sutras were scientifically interpreted with some aspects of a medical, ideas from a professional medical point of view by Swami founder of the Divine Life Society. So, according to all these great authors, there are 5 states of human mind based on the vrittis, vasanas and samskaras, which we all discussed several times earlier. One is kshipta, mood, and then vikshipta. 3rd stage is vikshipta. Vikshipta is naturally disturbed. There it is not distracted but disturbed, where mind goes towards one idea now and towards another idea later, next moment. Like a pendulum moving in both the directions. The pendulum, it moves in one direction, then with the same momentum, it moves in the opposite direction. When we are not able to focus on one idea, but we are able to carry on our daily duties and responsibilities. The vikshipta state is normal, the condition of normal human beings. We are able to do a lot of great things, of course. But there is always a tendency to direct the mind towards one direction and also maybe towards another direction. It is not highly distracted as the kshipta state, but it is able to function. But it is not fully able to concentrate or focus on one great idea for a long time. That state called vikshipta state, which is normal for all human beings. The 4th state is Ekagra, where you are able to focus completely on one point, one area, one discipline, or one object. This could come, you can achieve this through normal life activities. A scientist, for example, a painter, a musician, who devotes all his time, energy, everything on his chosen profession. An artist, musician, scientist. They could do that because they are able to concentrate all the energy and mental focus on one single subject or object. But this is not a conscious effort. They are interested in that. That's true. A football, if you are interested in football and if you are a football player, you may devote all your time, energy, everything for football. But you are not a yogi for that reason. You become a yogi if you can willfully direct your mind in one area. That's the main difference. Often we are able to concentrate on many areas because we are interested. It's a kind of instinctive, natural, spontaneous concentration. But there is no awareness of it. In fact, if you are very much interested in one area and if you are not allowed to pursue that particular profession, you'll feel disturbed. It means you are not a yogi. So there, the concentration, one-pointedness, it's called Ekagra state, is reached not through constant mental discipline, but is a natural, spontaneous diversion of the mind towards one area of interest, where there is an element of slavery, lack of freedom in that kind of concentration. The same concentration, if you can achieve with freedom and awareness, then it is called yogic concentration. So that's the main difference. When you practice yoga, we can concentrate, we can focus on one chosen area with full awareness. We can attach our mind to something and we can also detach. So there is freedom in that. There is no mental slavery. But instinctive concentration is a kind of mental slavery. So that should be understood. So a yogi tries to transcend the state of the vikshipta state, where the mind moves in one direction and then moves in the opposite direction, like a pendulum of a clock. When you reach that state with full freedom and awareness, then it's called Ekagra state in the state of concentration, one-pointedness in the yogic sense. The fifth state is Nirodha. The Nirodha and Ekagra state, those two words are used in the 4 sutras that we are going to deal with, which describe the 3 kinds of mental transformations. So, now we are trying to explain the 3 kinds of mental transformations as we encounter when we take to the path of yoga. First one is multiple perceptions, where our mind is naturally directed without much effort, helplessly, the mind being diverted towards various ideas, objects of pleasure, enjoyments, etc. That state is called Sarvarthata. Sarvarthata is the word used in Sanskrit. Sarva means all. Artha means what you consider to be your goal. So when the mind is naturally distracted towards everything, where we are not at all able to control the mind, not able to focus the mind towards anything, that state is called Sarvarthata state. The problem with this state of mind is linked to many of the problems of anxiety, worry, complaints, etc. Now, why do we worry? If a mind is always focused on one chosen area, we are no worry. So mind goes in one direction, immediately it grabs something else in the opposite direction. There it doesn't stop. So it's called multiple perceptions. It's called Sarvarthata, which is a big problem not only for human beings, animals also share the same problem, going in all directions. So the first step for every spiritual seeker is to progress from the Sarvarthata state where mind is going in all directions, grasping everything without any discipline, to transform or to evolve, to grow from the state of multiple perceptions to the state of one-pointedness. That one-pointedness is called Ekagra state in Sanskrit. So these words also explain in a way what it really is. Sarvarthata, sarva means all. Artha means a tendency to grasp, to go after, to consider as something to be achieved. So we want to achieve everything. So mind going in all directions. In fact, this tendency creates a lot of anxiety, a lot of worry. In fact, if you can observe our mind, every kind of mental problem is rooted in mental distractions. Distractions not in two areas, like Vikshipta state we explained, where mind goes in one direction, then after some time in the opposite direction, again going back to the previous occasion. There is not much disturbance. That's what happens to normal human beings. It happens, sometimes we pray in the morning, we do meditation, we do a lot of wonderful things, but at other times our mind is in a different level. But again the mind comes back to the higher state. There is not much disturbance. But when the mind goes after every kind of thing and looks upon everything to be achieved, to be acquired, to be enjoyed, then there is a lot of depression, anxiety, and distractions and allied problems. So the first step should be to reach the level of Ekagra, means one-pointedness, from the state of multiple perceptions. The third, the highest state, is called Nirodha. So Sarvarthata, multiple perceptions; Ekagrita, one-pointedness. Then the highest is Nirodha with transcendence, transcending both multiple perception and also the state of one-pointedness. Because the mind should transcend both these states. Then only it will be completely free. So third state is called transcendence, it's called Nirodha. These are the three states of mental transformations that we are going to discuss in the coming sutras. Transcendence is very interesting. It is called Nirodha. As I mentioned earlier, when all these states are enjoyed and achieved through conscious effort, we reach that stage with perfect awareness. When awareness is there, there is transcendence. Where awareness is absent, there is slavery. So that's why, we transcend all these problems when we go to sleep. But sleep doesn't mean we reach the level of transcendence of Nirodha. The sleep is achieved, or the transcendence associated with sleep is achieved without conscious effort. So there is no awareness in it. Because when we are aware of where we stand, there is freedom. When there is no awareness, there is no freedom. So that's why, Swami Vivekananda describing, not this state, but in the Yoga Sutra expositions, he makes an interesting remark. A fool goes to deep sleep and comes back as a fool. But when you enter into Samadhi, you come out of it and you are illumined. Because Samadhi is, in a way, reaching the state of deep sleep with full awareness. That's why in the Shankaracharya's commentary in the Brihadaranyaka and Chandogya Upanishads, there are long discussions. The difference between Samadhi and Sushupti. Sushupti is the Sanskrit word for deep sleep. In Sushupti, there is perfect, there is some perfect calmness, tranquility and peace. But that peace, the tranquility, is not rooted in awareness, it is rooted in ignorance. But in Samadhi, we reach that state through effort, through the gradual process of spiritual disciplines, yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, samadhi. So when you reach Samadhi state, and when you come back to the normal state, you are aware of your true dimension, not that you always remain there. So what's the difference between a person who has achieved Samadhi and those who have reached the Sushupti state? A person who has reached Samadhi can be very active, very dynamic, and he can perform all the duties and responsibilities of a normal citizen. But somewhere within his mental system, there is awareness that he has got another spiritual dimension that goes beyond the worldly dimension. That is the difference. So that's why somebody went to see Ramana Maharshi. Ramana Maharshi is an interesting example. Ramana Maharshi was really not very active. In fact, maybe a better example will be Vivekananda, because Vivekananda reached the state of Samadhi. Sri Ramakrishna trained him and he reached the state of Samadhi. After reaching the state of Samadhi, only he went about all over India, and he came to the West and gave these lectures, and he taught people, he scolded people, he worked hard, he got angry, he got upset. He established the monastic order. He taught many people. He guided many people. But at the same time, within his system, he knew that he is not a man of this world. He is a foreigner in this world. So, it means this difference between a person who has reached this state of freedom and who is still in a state of slavery, this difference is to be observed in one important quality that these highly evolved spiritual teachers display all the time in every action or every moment of their life. That is, they are totally detached. This kind of detachment, even when they are active, when they are working hard, doing all things that we normally understand, normally can call worldly obligation, even in that state, there is this aspect of total detachment. And detachment makes you free. Attachment leads you to slavery. So now we will come to the sutra. So in your text you find these 3 sutras you can see. 9th sutra, 12th sutra and 11th sutra. Now Patanjali perhaps did not arrange this sutra in ascending order. So that means the highest state of mental transformation is called Nirodha. Parinama means transformation. Nirodha means the transformation called Nirodha. It is the highest state. So it is mentioned in the 9th sutra. That's highest. The next lower state is Ekagra Parinama, means the state of one-pointedness. It is dealt with in the 12th sutra. And the lowest state, the state where we begin our spiritual evolution, is the state of Samadhi Parinama, and that is discussed in the 11th Sutra. So, that should be understood. So we should remember, these sutras were not written by a person sitting on table looking at the dictionary or encyclopedias. He traditionally taught, and they were living in hermitages in the forest mostly. So whenever the disciples came, they taught these sutras. And they didn't write actually. In fact, these sutras came to be written maybe from maybe around 3rd or 4th century AD. Up to 3rd or 4th century AD, when Buddhist Vijnanavadins took up this yoga philosophy in a big way. Before that, the sutras were not actually recorded in written form. There were Bhojapatra, different kinds of leaves of trees, the skins were used, or sometimes some other other materials were used for writing. So frequently, these sutras were taught orally. So the way the sutras are present in the text should be altered slightly for our convenience. So as I mentioned earlier, the lowest state is Samadhi Parinama. That is, that state is reached when you transcend multiple perceptions. The next higher state is Ekagra Parinama, which is mentioned and discussed in the 12th Sutra, Sutra number 12. And the highest state is mentioned first in the printed book, 9th Sutra. So that should be understood. That means Patanjali perhaps did not arrange the sutras in a descending order of mental transformations. They were taught in a random, teacher-disciple tradition in succession. So first we will deal with the Samadhi Parinama. That means transition from the Dharana state to Dhyana, actually. This is called Dharana to Dhyana state. So we have to remember the Ashtanga Yoga, Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama, Pratyahara, Dharana, Dhyana, Samadhi. So the first step is mentioned in the 11th Sutra. Sarvarthata ekagritayohu kshayodayo vichittasya samadhi parinamaha. This is the sutra. Sarvarthata ekagritayohu kshayodayo chittasya samadhi parinamaha. Sarvarthata, as I mentioned earlier, is a kind of all-grasping tendency of mind to go after all kinds of objects which create distraction, which from a psychological point of view is very damaging. You know why we are not able to do things properly? Why we forget after reading something? We read something, we forget. The reason is, when we were reading, our mind was not fully focused on what we were reading. If mind were fully focused, then what we read, we won't forget. For example, when you are reading something, you may be pressing the table on which the book is kept, listening to the car that is moving the street, thinking of the wonderful food that you have eaten. So you can find the three organs of perception, the sense of touch, the sense of taste, and sense of hearing. And we may not be actually seeing. Our eyes may be focused on the book, but we may be reading, but we also have something else in the mind. So the eyes also may not be fully focused. A yogi is able to focus all the senses of perception and mind together on a single object, so he won't forget it. So you have to remember, we all reach this state spontaneously and naturally in a helpless manner when we have a natural interest in it. when we have a natural instinctive interest in it. You find if you ask children to close the TV when the 49ers are going on, children who are fans of football, they may remember all the scores, everything. But they are not yogis, because when you switch off the TV, they get angry. So there is concentration also, there is helplessness and slavery, where you feel miserable when you lose what you concentrate upon. But a yogi can handle his mind the way we handle a stick in our hands. So, that's why Sarvarthata. So remember, Sarvarthata is multiple perception. Ekagra here doesn't mean the instinctive concentration of a person on something in which he is deeply interested, the loss of which may make him miserable or disappointed. Not that concentration, but real concentration. So going beyond multiple perceptions, you reach one-pointedness. Kshaya, or the decrease or weakening of Sarvarthata, and the manifestation of Ekagra, manifestation of concentration, and decrease in multiple perception or distraction. When this happens, it is called Samadhi Parinama. It is that particular mental transformation is called Samadhi, the first state, beginning. Different authors, different commentators have explained different aspects of this mental transformation. Vijnana Bhikshu, a great author, he says Sarvarthata is called Vikshiptada. Vikshiptada, we know, I already mentioned earlier. So, but some authors, some commentators would say Vikshiptada is better than Sarvarthata. In Vikshipta state, your mind goes in one direction, say like pendulum moving to the left and then to the right. It doesn't move in all directions. But there is a difference between Sarvarthata and Vikshiptada, according to some like Shankaracharya, Bhashya Vivarana. But Vijnana Bhikshu says, in fact, there is a similarity. It's called discursiveness, it's called. Say Bhoja, Bhoja, he wrote a famous book called Rajamartanda, vritti. So Rajamartanda, vritti. Vritti means a small book. Bhashya means a huge commentary, more interpretative, presenting a definite philosophical thought. It's called Bhashya or commentary. Vritti may be some like an explanatory notes, that's all. So this Bhoja says, for example, Chalatva Nanavidha Arthagrahanam. Mind is always moving, changing. So how does it happen? There are two words in the Pada Yoga system in this context that you remember. One is vritti, the other is pratyaya. Vritti means when the mind is moving, it goes after one object or one idea. So that creates a vritti. Immediately next moment, it goes after something else. So another vritti. There's a continuous flow of vrittis, each different from the other. This is called chalatva. Means always changing, moving. So what happens? It goes on chasing different objects, different ideas, which I mentioned earlier, distraction. And the distraction is one of the main causes for all kinds of problems like anxiety, even some of the neurotic problems, all due to distraction. Or they manifest, the symptoms are often in the forms of distractions. This is called Sarvarthata. Now we'll discuss Ekagra, one-pointedness later, but I shall just begin a short definition of Ekagra or one-pointedness. The same author, Vijnana Bhikshu, says, Egasminneva alambane sadrisha parinamida, that is the Ekagra. Means the mind undergoing the same modification with regard to a single object. I shall try to explain. Suppose your mind is moving from one object to other, from one object to another object, each movement creating an independent vritti, each vritti being different from each other vritti, then it is called multiple perception. But suppose your mind creates the same vritti, continuously the same vritti, it is called concentration. Every moment a vritti is produced. But every moment the same identical vritti or identical impression is created. That is called concentration. Okay. Now we will have interaction, question answer. So you can ask, I know because there's a long gap, so you can ask questions, we will discuss the subjects, please. Yeah. Vritti, in a simple language, you can say residual element. Suppose you do something, it's not physical action. It could be an idea that flashes in your mind. So he will bring. So your question is, what vritti is, what it is all about. So as I mentioned, vritti is nothing but a kind of residual element. Any action, not physical action necessarily, even an idea that flashes in your mind, a word you speak, any kind of involvement produces a residual consequence, effect, after that action is over. It registers an impression in the mental system. And this impression that is registered in the mental system becomes a strong tendency, then it is called vasana. It's called samskara. So vritti becomes vasana, vasana becomes samskara. I shall try to explain, don't mind, we know for a long time. Action or karma produces vritti, vritti produces samskara, samskara produces vasana, vasana produces sankalpa, sankalpa produces nishchaya, nishchaya produces karma again. I shall try to explain. This is a kind of cycle, like think of a wheel, vicious circle, so to speak. Whatever we do, not necessarily physical actions, words that we speak, an idea that flashes in the mind, all this can produce an impression, something that is a residual element, residue of whatever we do. That residue is called vritti. It is kind of impression. If the action produced good result, happy result, you would like to do it again. If it produced unhappy result, you will be very reluctant to do it again. So, every action produces an impression or a vritti that remains there even long after the particular action is completed. Now, this vritti, when a number of vrittis get accumulated in the mental system, they become samskara. Samskara is a tendency. Suppose you had a very happy, pleasant experience from one particular action. The vritti will create a samskara in your mental system, and that samskara will create a strong tendency. That tendency will slowly become an action-oriented tendency. Action-oriented tendency is called vasana. Tendency itself is called samskara. Samskara, when it becomes action-oriented, is called vasana. That's why, let us say, if children who are born in musical families of musicians, children may have listened to music when they are very small. So listening to music when even they are babies or small children, will produce a vritti in the system. Vrittis, well, and they enjoy the music, the samskara. Then when they get a chance, when the parents are away, they may take the musical instrument, try to play, because that tendency again becomes an action-oriented vasana. Samskara becomes vasana. Vasanas go deeper than samskara. Samskaras go deeper than vritti. Vrittis go deeper than action. So karma, vritti, samskara, vasana. Now, when you create a samskara which becomes action-oriented, that is vasana, then what happens, you decide to do certain things, or you decide not to do certain things, depending upon the condition of the vritti. Whether happy vritti, happy action, happy result, then you have a tendency to do it again. If it is unhappy, you have a tendency to avoid it. So the vasanas become nischaya, means or sankalpa, both the same. I will do it. And that again leads to action. And action again produces vritti. Vritti again samskara, samskara vasana, vasana nischaya, nischaya again karma, karma produces again vritti. Something like that, the cycle continues. Yes, nischaya means decision. Volition. I will do this or I will not do this. Your mental will is involved. And once you decide to do or not to do, then you do it, karma, action. And again it produces vritti. So the cycle goes on rotating. Now yoga is trying to help you to come out of this cycle. The cycle that keeps us chained, enslaved to our own samskaras. That's why, there are many people who, after reading the Yoga Sutras or wonderful spiritual books, want to start, tomorrow onwards I will start a new life. I will do something wonderful. I will not do something like this. But when you really try to practice it, tomorrow morning again, you automatically follow what you are used to doing it. There is an element of helplessness, slavery. But slowly, the constant effort will help us to come out of this. Constant effort. Yeah. Yeah. If we can, yeah. Yeah. Now, how do we know where it begins, where it ends? Our actions are determined by our mind. Our mind is full of different impressions, samskaras and vasanas, which determine, influence our action. And this action again produce identical samskaras like that. So yoga helps you to become aware of this problem. Once you are aware of this problem, then you will begin your effort to get out of it. That's why yoga is defined as freedom. So that's one. No, any more question from any?
Why is there a different order in the writing of the book and the suggested order that you suggest of the chapters?
Yeah. No,
is there a reason of why Patanjali did that way, or it's just because?
Well, normally, these Patanjali Yoga Sutras are taught different universities. When they teach in universities and colleges, they follow the printed book. But in traditional schools, where, the yoga tradition, Vedanta tradition, the grammar, Vyakarana, all these were preserved in traditional schools, what we call parampara, succession of teachers, students, disciples. In many of these parampara tradition, they expect the student first of all to memorize all the 195 sutras. So a student is supposed to memorize these 195 sutras. For they will have memorized, many of them have memorized 4,000 and all Vyakarana sutras, Panini sutras. So this won't be much of a problem for them. So in the traditional schools, students normally memorize this. So for them, where you begin, where it is not a problem. For for in our context, if we can first explain the definitions, the introduction, then go to the real chapter. That's wonderful. So that's why in a printed book, the first chapter is Samadhi Pada. Samadhi means concentration. Concentration you achieve only through effort. Means practice. It's called Sadhana Pada. This comes second. Then Vibhuti Pada. Powers, consequences. Mental powers that you achieve. Then Kaivalya Pada, which is of course the same. Kaivalya liberation, the last stage. So in some traditional schools, they teach this way. But it need not disturb our reading. Once you understand this, then when you read, becomes natural to us. So that's the thing. And if you are asking about a book, I would say Swami Vivekananda's exposition still remains one of the best that we have in English language. So that you can say. Swami Vivekananda's exposition of Yoga Sutras. Raja Yoga text you find it. Yeah. You find some sudden flashlights into areas which can come only from a great spiritual teacher who has reached that experience level. So that Swamiji's translation and commentary of the sutras is one of the best. Yeah. Any more? So thank you. We will continue the discussion the next Friday. Again, I want to mention, of course, give one information. It can be done later also. We will have the rededication of our old temple on 29th and 30th. But the programs will be held in the new temple. All the celebration, all the ceremonies and celebrations will be held in the new temple. On 29th evening from 7 to 11 o'clock we have puja, homa, all rituals. Then on 30th, that is October the 30th, Sunday, we will have an audio-visual presentation on the history of the old temple. And then we will have a public meeting from 2 to 5:30. That is October 30th, Sunday. All these programs will be held here in lecture hall. So a number of scholars, monks and nuns, including the Episcopal Bishop of San Francisco, will be present. So you are most welcome. Please keep this in mind, October 30th especially. Okay. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat Sri Ram Krishna Arpanamastu.